All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. Paul McLean here, and excited that you joined this morning. I'm excited that every single Monday morning you make this a priority to hop on, and I hope this is serving you and serving you well. My goal is the same every week, to kind of give you some insight. I mean, the last 15 years, I've figured out how to mess this thing up many different times, and I've had the good fortune, like you have, to be able to plug in to great resources, to be able to get on podcasts, training, ask questions, and just simply not quit. And I promise you, if you're just like getting started, and you're like, man, I want to learn how to go out and help 40 families. Just like, first goal, just don't quit. Just make a decision not to quit. Because the reality is this, I love what my buddy Trey says. He says, listen, we're here trying to get better, right? We're here growing. We're out there taking massive action. We're getting after it. You might have this future of writing 50 families a month, making X amount of money, doing these different things, and you're looking through this filter of faith, like, man, I believe I can get there. And then you're putting feet behind the faith. You're getting after it every single week, and then you're plugging in, you're growing, you're getting better. And you're like, I still don't see it quite yet. It's a process, right? Day by day, just get a little bit better. And that's the goal today, guys, is for me to help you with some scenarios and situations to get you that much better. And the reality is this, Trey says there's not a group of people in the other room right here figuring out, like, how do we really mess Dennis up this week? We know he's kind of getting used to the think about it objection. He's kind of getting used to, like, let's shop around. He's getting used to, hey, we've already got it covered. Let's give him something new. That doesn't happen, right? You are getting better. They are staying the same. So you're only going to get better week in and week out. You're going to progress, develop, and eventually be able to go out there and elevate your game and have a higher skill set to be that much better in the home. So we want to kind of dive into that today. Now, what I do want to encourage you to do is this. Really look at and interrogate every single week what your scenarios look like, right? So at the end of the week, I think it's healthy and it's helpful to go through your agenda and go through every appointment you had. Okay, I sat with 5 or 6 clients on Tuesday. What was the situation? Were they young, looking for mortgage protection? Were they older, looking for mortgage protection? Was it a final expense where their income was really tight and you got a budget objection? Kind of go through that, right? And I do think it's beneficial as you're going through it each and every day when you're focused on how do I build this skill, right? This comes after the fact that you're booking the right amount of appointments. If you're only booking 3 and you're like, man, I just don't know what I could do different. I need to figure out this, think about it. No, fool, you need to book 30 more appointments every week, right? You got to do that. Like you're trying to fix a stubbed toe and you got a broken, leg, fix the leg. So given that's taken place, what you should be doing, what helped me out tremendously, was going through and figuring out what to tweak or adjust in my schedule to reflect on my schedule and figure out what could I tweak and adjust within each appointment. Like did I connect with that client? Where did I lose it? Was it me not asking the right amount of questions, right? Was it the scenario, man, like it seems like everybody that's like 70 that has health conditions, if they want $100,000 in protection, I just struggle with getting them to understand the value of 10,000. Like that always gets me. Like becoming aware of where we could tweak, adjust, and get better. Now, once you're aware of that, guys, this is a prime opportunity when you plug into all these different work spots, meetings, and locations across the country. That's the benefit you've got to get better. Then you could walk in and meet somebody that's out there serving 40 families a month and say, hey man, can you help me with this? I had this situation this week. This is what I did. Could you give me some feedback, some coach? How would you handle it? What would you do? And what you get to do is you get insight on their thought process. So stay with me here. You went out there and you handled it. It's fresh on your mind, right? You saw it. At the end of the appointment, you journaled about it. Man, it kind of went wrong here. This is where I lost it. So it's fresh. You've got the notes on it. You've analyzed that situation, that appointment. Now you're getting with somebody that's already kind of crossed the path. They know how to handle it, right? They've been here long enough. They've handled that situation 100 times. They're helping families in that situation 90% of the time. And they can say, do it this way. What you get to do is step into their thought process, and now you can understand the adjustments to make. Now, guess what? When you go back out there next week, you're that much better. And that's the goal, is just to get that much better. So I would just suggest and urge you guys, as you go through each week, realize that there's only so many scenarios that you're going to see. Be aware of the ones that you're kind of getting hung up on, the adjustments that you got to make and need to make, And once you're aware of that, then you can move from intention. Okay, well, I had this issue here. How do I get better? What must I do to start helping clients that show that situation? Clients that already have protection, or they already seem like they've got enough, or they've got health challenge. What must I do to help those families? And then you can start to go after that intention. You take action. Well, I must reach out to some people and get some feedback. Man, I need to show up to this meeting. I've been inconsistent. I need to come to the meeting, and not just come, but I got to come with these questions, with this intention and expectation that, man, and this I'd always say this, man, if I had a no sale, Sean Mike could have helped him because he was so good. And so what that did is it allowed me to stay accountable to growth, to get better, and to leave this excuse and justification that it wasn't me, it was a client, and that just left me bitter. I wanted to get better, not bitter. Does that make sense? All right, so a big thing you could do when it comes to connecting with the clients is just start looking at asking questions, okay? When you look at the top producers, if somebody said, what's a characteristic that most top producers have, I would say confidence. Like they just seem confident. I would almost say charisma. Like they seem kind of charismatic. Like they're like you just like what Trey said earlier. He's like, man, I buy anything from you. Like they have that charisma where you're like, man, I want to be influenced. You can influence me. You can lead me. I'm listening. Guide me. Direct me. Like you've got that about you. And what that charisma comes from is, for one, the ability to connect. See, like when you can connect with the client and they understand that you really do care about them. I love that old quote that says, like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's so applicable really in anything, but very much so in what we do. That's why a brand new person can go in and serve 20 families knowing really nothing, and yet somebody that's been in the insurance industry for 10 years can go sit and be struggling. Well, one person, it's about the client. So when they go in, man, it's all about them. They're not worried if they're going to mess it up. They're not looking at themselves. In fact, if you're worried about what the client's going to think and getting uncomfortable, I don't know if I could ask that. I don't know if I could say it that way. I don't know if well, that's just an ego thing where you're worried about how they're going to perceive you to be. And it's really a future you that's not even taking place because you've not yet had it. So you're basically feeling out of sorts about another self, a version of yourself of being told no or uncomfortable. And that's an ego. That's an issue that you've got. So, but when you can release that, surrender it, let it go, and say, man, listen, it doesn't matter what I know or don't know. What I do know is that this client needs to be served and helped, and it's my obligation, my privilege when I receive that lead to go serve that family. So if you can go in and let go of all the things you've got going on that has you thinking about yourself, and for that period of time, put 100% focus on the client, you're going to set yourself up to be in a significant better situation. See, too often we go in and we've got life taking place. And if we don't compartmentalize, what happens is this. You go in and you can't take your eyes off yourself long enough to really make the connection with your client's eyes and understand their situation, understand their heart, their mind, what they're thinking and feeling. And you can never lead and influence them in a direction where they want you to be the person to help and serve them. So you got to take your eyes off yourself long enough and put them on them. And the best way I could explain this is if you look at some of the best athletes, right? You can see some of the things that they've gone through. Like I remember Brett Favre, I think he lost his dad, and Adrian Peterson about losing his son. And it was like the day before their game. And of course they've got a lot of emotion tied to that. I mean, I could only imagine. I haven't experienced neither one of those things. But they went out and they played one of the best games because they channeled that. See, top people know how to channel things. And it wasn't like they didn't have any emotion or they didn't care. Dude, they cared. I mean, how do you even judge that? Of course. But what they realize is that my task right now in my schedule, what's planned is I've got to go execute well because my team, they depend on it. My team deserves it and I can't let them down. And so they went and played for that block of time. And the moment that game was over, I'm sure they went through that whole process of grieving and all that. But that's the same thing that you're going to deal with as a self-employed business owner and a producer. You're going to have stuff happen. There's nobody that's going to scapegoat that, right? There's nowhere in any book, the Bible, anywhere, that says you're not going to go into struggles, have adversity, setbacks, and valleys. You're gonna have that stuff take place, right? But if you always have your mind right, you'll respond in such a way that it'll tee you up and set you up to have that much more growth and develop that much better than you could ever had if it never took place to you in the first place, right? But it's a perspective. So when it comes to the thing that you gotta do, serve that client, man, you gotta compartmentalize and remind yourself that this client desperately needs you to be present, to connect with them, and to show confidence so that they feel assured that you're the person that can find the plan and provide the plan and foresee and see the plan out when something happens to their family, that you'll be the one that steps in and that they can rest assured on you. That's what you've got to be, right? And so how do you best connect? Well, you're a good listener. So when you step in the door, if it's about Dennis, not about me, then my eyes are on him. I'm trying to figure out a way to show him that I value him. I'm trying to figure out how I can show him the value. Now, same thing with recruiting. How can I show that I value you, right? Because you can't lead anybody until you've connected with them. I like saying, like, you can't convince unless you've connected. You got to connect before you convince. So I got to connect with you before I can convince you of whatever I want to convince you of. Maybe it's to convince you that you really do care about your family enough to take action and get in the plan. Maybe I got to connect with you so I can convince you that you really can go out there and accomplish your goals and be successful here. I got to connect with you before I can infuse belief, whatever that may be, but you got to connect first. So the way you connect is going there and being fully present. So if you're thinking about what you've got going on, if you're thinking about your budget, the bills you got to pay, man, what if they say no? What if this happens? And foreseeing all these other possibilities that make it about you, you're never going to be able to connect. So when you go in, think about, how can I connect with you? How can I show you that I value you? And a lot of that is being an active listener. So I say, Dennis, how long have you lived here for? I'm paying attention to what he's saying. If I say, listen, man, most clients that fill this request out, they kind of have the same thing in mind. They want to make sure that when they die, that there's not a financial, devastation or burden to their family as their family is going through one of the hardest things that they're ever going to go through, because it's going to happen eventually. And they're going through that emotional turmoil and the grieving and trying to figure out how to live life without that person being here, how to just do any activity, going downstairs and seeing that seat that's usually filled with them, no longer them sitting there, and then having that financial change in their budget and not being able to know how to pay the bills. They want to make sure that their family is going to be okay to get through that. Is that pretty much fair to say that's what you had in mind as well, just to make sure that the family was going to be taken care of as they go through that season? And he's going to say yes, right? And I guess, well, tell me more about that. Why is that so important to you? And I can ask questions and I'm present. Does that make sense? And I'm actively listening to him. So I'm going to connect. Now, confidence is also essential. If, like, I remember my daughter, I had two of my girls, both on the couch. They had a sheet over their heads and they're running around. It's great parenting, right? 101. Want to see how tough they really were if they could figure this thing out. They run into each other. I think it was my daughter at the time. One was like maybe 8. The other one was like 4. They collide. 4-year-old falls off, smacks her head on the coffee table, needs stitches. I go to the doctor's office and I'm like, I'm feeling like unsure, insecure, like this is my baby. Like, I'm emotional. My wife usually doesn't. Like, if it's now my son, it's just weird how boys and girls, the way you just feel different. Like, my son could fall down. I'm like, dude, have some respect for yourself. Get up. Like, what are you doing? Freak, this is weird. My daughter falls down. Like, I want to cry. Like, oh my God, did she hurt herself? But we go to so I'm already kind of like, I don't know, like, I'm worried. Like, is she gonna be all right? Is she gonna be able to handle this? And I'm looking for the doctor to assure me, right? This doctor didn't assure me because he was like, well, what do you think we should do? I'm like, huh? Like, did I go to school? Like, you sell insurance and I went to school. Did we switch roles here? And I instantly didn't like him, right? Fast forward, my other daughter, now this is 4 years later, she is running for my daughter the other night, busts into this banister that's on the staircase, cuts her whole, right here, cuts her whole eye open. We gotta go get stitches. This guy came in, he's like, no big deal, man, she'll be all right. This happens all the time. Like, is this only her first set? He's making it. I'm like, I like this dude. You know what I mean? Got my emotions under control, because I was like, this one's even softer than the other ones. Like, she can't handle getting any kind of injury. So I'm like, we're gonna have to strap her down and hold her, which we did. But he made it okay. So you want to be confident. That's how you're gonna best serve and help the client, is to exuberate confidence. So how do you build confidence? Well, for one, you can borrow confidence from the people that you're around. You borrow confidence from your posse, your herd, your tribe, who you hang with, right? Like, if that doctor that I met with the first was he obviously wasn't confident, but he said, you know what? I want to make sure I give you the right answer. I'm about 99% sure, but I don't want to leave anything with not one slight, bit of uncertainty. Let me call. I got a really good relationship. One of the nation's best, guy that does the suture, the stitches. Let me see what he says. I would have felt great. I wouldn't have been like, well, you don't know, do you? So I don't know if I would have felt great, because I don't care if he's the guy, as long as he knows the guy that's going to give him the right information. So that's the same thing when you're in the field. You know people. Borrow your confidence with that. Hold yourself with confidence, even if you haven't served 1,000 families, because you know people that are the best in the industry. Also, realize this: as much as you try to downplay yourself in the beginning, which most people do, and you walk in with insecurity, fear of rejection, all these things you're going to work through as you go through experiences and you build it up. Realize that you've got a license and they don't. So, like, you've got a license and they don't. It'd be weird if they were the mechanic and you went there and you've never worked on a car and you started giving them advice, right? Would that be weird? Sure. Especially if they asked for you to, if you asked for them to show up to help you fix your car. It's the same thing. So go with confidence that you've got the license. Also, you'll build confidence through experience, through going, doing it day in and day out, day in and day out. See, confidence is how you feel about your ability. So if you can plug in to the right people, right, hang out with confident people, you're more likely to exuberate that kind of confidence, because you can borrow it from them. And then if you can continue to elevate your game and book more and more appointments through that massive action, you're going to build your confidence up, right? And as you plug into the calls and the podcast, that's going to build your confidence up. You're going to feel more able to go out there and perform. And so if you can do that, connect and have confidence, you'll best help clients. All right. So I wanted to kind of give you that before we go into scenario. The scenario I want to cover real quick with you guys is, if you sat with the client, I had this I had a lot of agents the last week or two. I get quite a few calls where they say, hey, Paul, I had this situation. How do I best handle it? I just left the client's house. What do you think? What I heard a couple times this week was, if you sat with the client and they've got a cheap term that's going to expire in, say, 10 years, right? So we'll give you this example. Let's just say they're 55 years old, right? Let's just say they're going to live until they're 90. And they got a term that's going to end at age 65. Let's just say they have a plan for $400,000, and hypothetically, let's just say they're only paying, $50 a month. All right, so you sit with that client and they're in good health, and you know that you can show them return of premium, but the return of premium, if it's like, say $100,000 for return of premium at age 55, that covers them to age 20. Let's just say, I don't have it pulled up, but maybe it's, $225 a month, right? So you're thinking, like, how do I show them something? They're paying 50. How do I show them 225? How do I get them around on this being more valuable for them? Now, again, the best thing you could do is ask questions. When you ask questions, also, that's how you connect, right? That's also how you show confidence, is through asking questions, because your questions can paint a picture. Your questions can get them living in a situation. Your questions can evoke emotion. So my question is, if I'm sitting down with Dennis, all right, you're 55, so from 55 to 65, you have 400,000. My question, Dennis, is, like, most clients, they believe they're gonna, they have a higher chance of dying from 65 to 90 than they do from 55 to 65. Would you hope for the same thing? What is he gonna say? Yeah. So, by the way, it's the way I ask the question. Instead of saying, Dennis, do you think you're gonna more likely to die from 55 to 65 or from 65 to 90? You know what I used to get? They'd say, well, I don't know. Only God knows. I don't know when I'm going to die. Which is like, obviously, probabilistic rationale would say that you're going to die from 65 to 95 more likely, right? So instead I say, so Dennis, what would you be hoping for? Would you be hoping to die from 55 to 65 or 65 to 90? Well, 65 to 90. I say, got it. So I'll say, now, the way insurance companies work, it's pretty simple. And they're all the same, Dennis. Their goal with like a term plan is they know that less than 2% of term is going to pay out. Like 98% of the time, they keep the money. So when you're looking at this big 400,000, all they're looking at is that over the next like 10 years, you're putting in $600 a year, right? Times 10, you're gonna put in $6,000. So what they're looking at is that they're gonna keep, and I draw this out on the paper, they're gonna keep that $6,000. That's what they see in their mind. Now, not only that, but guess what? At 65, if you haven't died yet, do you still need life insurance? Of course, right? Because if you're like anybody else, they always say, Paul, I need life insurance when I'm alive. I need my life insurance to be there until I die. Like, I don't want to expire my insurance policy to expire before I expire. That would make no sense. Like, if I die, there's always a loss of income. Even if it's later down the line and you have, you know, just Social Security, there's still a loss of income. So now, Dennis, at 65, if you want to go out and say pay $200 a month, it's going to only get you like $30,000 in life insurance at 65. Because of your age, now to lock it in, the insurance company knows the odds of you dying from 65 to say 75, if you do another 10-year term, is significantly higher to die. Or at that time, what most people will say is like, they're gonna be jaded by that term policy and they'll say, well, Paul, I wanna have a plan that doesn't expire. Most people that I'm most, you know, that are the most frustrated clients, Dennis, is typically the client that had a plan that expired, they calculate all the money they paid into it, and now when they go to reapply, it's 20 times higher. And the reason why it's so much higher, because insurance company looks at your life in blocks of time. What are the odds of you dying from 55 to 65 or from 65 to 75? Well, from 65 to 75, you're like 100,000 times more likely to die than you are from here to here, right? I mean, even from 73 to 75, those 2 years, you're more likely to die from 73 to 75 than you are from 55 to 65. So that's how they look at it as far as mortality and breaking it all down. So Dennis, looking at this situation, right now you've got 400,000 in protection. The odds, like you said, is you're probably going to still be here at 65. And Dennis, at 65, you're still going to feel like you need life insurance, right? Is that fair? Yes. Okay. So at 65, you lock it in. Now, if you do a permanent plan at 65, like you want it to last forever, or let's just say it's 15 years, it's 70 to make it easy. So at 70, you say, I want to get a plan that's going to last forever. You've already thrown away all this money, right? And now you're only going to be able to get $30,000 in protection, and it's going to cost you possibly around $200 a month to lock it in forever. So what most clients do in your situation, Dennis, is they'll look at a plan that at the end of the term, they get 100% of the money back. So that way, if something happens, like God forbid the next 20 years from 55 to say 75, if something happens in the next 20 years, you need to have probably more protection than you do outside of those 20 years, because as you get older and you die, there's not as many years left to replace that income because you've lived longer than you were gone, right? That makes sense? They say yes. So what most clients will do is they'll look at a plan that's like a savings account. So at the end of 20 years, you get 100% of your money back. So if we look at, say, dropping it down to even like, say, 50,000. So let's just say they only could afford $50 a month. If we drop it down to 50,000, let's say 50,000 is $50 a month. What they realize is they'd rather have 50,000 for $50 a month, because that's going to cover them from 55 to 75. And at the end of 75, they're going to get back the $12,000. So at the end of 20 years, they get back 12,000 at 75. And then at 75, they could go in and lock in that $12,000 and use it for retirement or whatever they want to use it for. Or they could roll it into a single payment whole life. They take that 12,000, let's just say they give them something like 20,000 paid up in full. So now at 75, they have a $20,000 plan from 75 to 90, that's paid up. You don't make any more payments, and it's paid up in full. So what they're able to do is they have 50,000 more protection for the next 20 years, opposed to 15. At the end of 20 years, they get back $20,000 or $12,000 that they could use for retirement, or they could just roll it into a single premium whole life. That $20,000 will go ahead and now be paid up in full. They make no more payments, and they've got $20,000 to cover final expenses for the rest of their life. Do you see how that makes financial sense? And they'll say yes. Now, ideally, what I would do in this situation is say, you know, how much, so this is how I'd handle it. I'd say you're already paying $50 a month. How much more in addition to that $50 a month? Because I know that's coming out of the budget, you're used to it. What I could tell you is this much, Dennis. I sit with a lot of clients that they've got 5 plans. They got a plan when they were 55. They sent in another form when they were 60. They get another plan when they're 65. I sit with them when they're 72, and they got 5 policies, and they're paying like $400 a month for all of them. The problem with that is like the last 3 policies they got, they were able to get 1/10 of the protection because they were older. If they were able to lock it all in at their youngest age, they would have been able to leave so much more for their family for what was sustainable in their budget. Does that make sense? They say yes. So I say, so for you guys, you're already used to paying that $50 a month. How much more in addition to that do you think you could sustain each month? Like $100 in addition to it, $150, $200. Now, whatever number they give me, that's what I just sold it for. So they say an additional $150 a month. Well, what did I sell it for? $200. Because I'm going to take the $50 they're already used to paying. If they can afford an additional $150, I can replace this by giving them a better plan for what they're looking for. Take that $50, reposition it to what I'm going to help them. They can afford an additional $150. $150 plus $50 is $200. Does that make sense? So that's how you handle it. Now, the way why I do it like that, Ernest, is anytime I go into like trying to give the client a concept or a thought process, I give it to them third party. So I give them an example or a story on clients that I've sat with that are in a similar situation and what they've either told me or what they've thought or what they've done. So when I say Dennis, I sit with a lot of clients that you know are 70, and I'm basically painting a picture of what he's probably going to do if he doesn't do what I suggest right now, which is just lock in as much as you can afford and not think about it again. So I say a lot of clients, in fact, statistically speaking, like most Americans have multiple life insurance plans, and they got one when they were, say, 55, so I use their age, one when they were 60, 65, and all that happens is as they get older, they realize that, you know, most of the money I'm just saving it or I'm spending it and blowing it. I really want to make sure I've got my family in the best position I can leave them in when I die, right? And if this is a savings account, which a lot of these plans, if they're structured right, could be, why would I not just save it in a situation where I can leverage my legacy by getting more of a death benefit, and if I don't die, I still get it back anyways. So most clients will get multiple plans, but they end up with 80% less than what they could have got if they would just locked it all in at their lowest age. Does that make sense, Ernest? And they say yes. So now what I've got him thinking is he's perceiving a situation that most clients live in and that he could possibly be in as well, because he knows that he can sustain more than $50 a month, and he knows that he wants to have more than $400,000. I've already explained to him why it's so cheap, because they're going to keep the money, and at age 70, when you go to lock it back in, it's going to cost you, you know, $600 a month for $400,000 in, right? And you're not going to want to be able to pay that, so then you're going to drop the coverage, and maybe you get suckered into another 10-year term because you're like, man, I just really need more, right? And you don't want to go way less with the whole life, so you do another 10-year term, and then you outlive that, and now you're paying 10 times more than you would have been after the first 10 years. So I've already got his mind right on the fact that what he's paying here, the $400,000, it's just smoke and mirrors. It just looks really good, but odds are that's not going to pay out based off of statistics, right? And if you went to the casino, would you rather have a situation where you bet $20, right? And you've got a 98% chance to win $30. So you give 20, you end up with 30, you win 10. Or would you rather go to the table where you got to bet $100 and you've got a 10% chance of winning and 90% chance of losing, but if you win, you win $50. The other one, right? Of course. You're gonna make significantly more. It's the same thing. It's just probabilistic thinking. Like this is what the situation is. So once I've explained it to them, Ernest, then I can say, given that, how much more do you guys think you could sustain above what you're already used to? Because you're already used to paying that, right? It's already factored in. But I don't want you guys, and I know you don't want to be the client that continues to add. Like you want to lock in as much as you can get for your family. Never think about it again. You're good to go. Would that be 100, 150, 200? So I'm just giving you the psychology behind it, right? So he says 150. So now I just sold $200. So now the premium is $200 a month for the client, right? So now the premium, now I could say, so the next 20 years, and let's just say that gave him, hypothetically, because I don't have it in front of me, but let's just say that gave him a total of, roughly 100,000. Or just to use this example up here, let's say it's 225. All right, like a 3.5-year-old that got held back 2 years. So it's 225 for the 100,000. Well, now I could do the math and show great value, because when value exceeds price, people buy. So now it's 225. What's 225 times 12 times 20? Anybody give that to me real quick? So now I can say this is a savings account.
54,000.
So 54,000 is like the money back in that situation. So I could say next 20 years you've got 100,000 instead of 400, right? But the 400 is only going to last you, until you're 70, and then that goes away, right? And then it's all that money's gone. Would you rather just throw away 6,000 as an expense and then be left with no life insurance and have to pay significantly more and end up with significantly less because you got to lock in now an age of 70 where your mortality is significantly higher? Would you rather spend the 6,000 and end up with no coverage and have to get way less at the end, or end up with a plan where you're saving 54,000 and at the end of 20 years you get $54,000 back to help structure retirement better? Or you can roll that into a single premium whole life, and let's just say they roughly give you around 100,000, and so when you need to save money the most and you're trying to minimize expenses and have a better fruitful retirement, you can go ahead and minimize it by saying, hey, you know what, I don't need the money back, I just want the life insurance. But now you get 100 grand from 75 to 90 and it's free. You make no payments on it. Opposed to the other way, it continues to balloon. They continue to keep, and you're left at age 84 with possibly only 10,000 in protection, and you've already paid in significantly more because the terms keep expiring. Do you see how that makes more financial sense, Ernest? Yeah, and that's why every client in your situation, when they've got a plan, they always ask, you got to ask themselves, does this plan fill in all the gaps? Because if not, when a hole pops up, it costs a lot more down the line to fill the hole than it does now. And so right now, when we look at a plan that gives you your money back at the end of the term, what it does is it fills in all the gaps, so you can rest assured and know that I'm good. The plan I put in place right now, I don't have to revisit it, ever get a letter in the mail that's ballooning, they're keeping the money, I'm good. So what we could do is let's see if we get you qualified and kind of go from there. But this is a situation that you want to, anytime you got a client that's got a term that maybe it's a big amount for a low premium, and again, you're going to show them cashback option, and the premium might be 7 times more for the same protection. It's the value behind it, right? It's not 7 times more, it's 30 times better when you explain it the right way. So 7 times more, it feels okay if it's 30 times better. And when you break it down and they understand what they've got, and you kind of give those stories and situations, you should be able to help clients in these situations 90% of the time that have a term that's going to expire, and you're going to show them that term with money back. Does that make sense? All right. As you wrap up, anybody have a question here as far as a situation or scenario that you've had in the past couple weeks that you want to go through real quick? Ernest?
How to gain more trust with like a client when you're right in front of them? How to gain that?
Yeah, and it goes back to kind of we started. So Ernest's question is how to gain more trust when you're sitting with the client. The way you gain more trust, man, is just connecting. People like or buy from who they like and trust. Think about it. If I can connect with you, we can find common ground. You think that I value you. You believe that I provide value to you and I value you. There's going to be a connection. You're going to start to trust me, right? Also, when you say little things that, when you step in the door, you don't know what assumption or preconceived notion that they've got about you. A lot of times that's derived from their past. Like they might have had somebody sit with them that was selling, maybe it was Trey, right? In his older days, he was trying to sell them water softener, didn't know what he was doing, rubbed them the wrong way, tried to pressure them to get something that they didn't ask for, want, or desire. And now when you step in, they see you as the same guy that stepped in because you're in the likeness, right? He came over trying to sell. They look at you the same way. So your goal is the moment you step in is to for one, see yourself in such a way where you're the professional. Man, they need you more than they need anybody else. Without you, they're dude, out of luck, man. They're screwed. Like they need you because you know what you're doing. You care about them, and this is the most important thing they could ever get in place. So if you believe that about yourself, when I walk in, I don't want to call it like cockiness, right? Or arrogance, because I believe arrogance is when you just think so highly of yourself. I call that arrogance will shift to confidence when you believe that you care so much about them and what you provide is so significant for them that it's not about you, it's about what you're able to provide for them and you're serving them. That's where you go in and you've got that confidence. And remember, people will like and trust you if you can connect with them and you can be confident and really confirmed and convicted in what you're helping them with. See, dude, people don't even need you to really believe what you're saying and what you're doing as much as they need to believe that you believe it. Like if I believe that you believe it, I'm more likely to trust and like you. I don't even know if I need to necessarily be fully convicted that I believe, maybe I'm still a little off, but if you're so convicted, and I know, man, you believe this, I'm a lot more persuaded to be pulled into your belief because of how much you believe it. So if you can really go in and put that first, man, and just like realize that, dude, they need you, and then hold yourself in such a way where everything you say is getting them to see you as a person that just really values them and provides value, that's where the trust is built. Does that make sense? So ask yourself, what will it take when I walk in that house? What will it take for me to show the value, right, that I can provide them, and also to show that I value them? And if you kind of ask that question, when you go in and you see with clients, you'll have the answers. You'll be able to say the right things, right? You'll be able to connect with them. And when they say something out of sorts or where they try to take control and show that they don't trust you, you'll say the right things. You say, listen, we might have got ahead of ourselves, but I don't know if you think I'm a sales rep or what have you, but my job is simply to field underwrite and figure out what you can or can't qualify. And with all due respect, Ernest, what you do or don't do makes no difference to me at all. Honestly, I could care less. Now, I'm really good at my job because I care about people and I care to help you, but we might be premature if you're not in a position where you want me to go through the right things to do that. Now, my guess in the way you've kind of communicated is that you just don't want somebody to come over that doesn't care about you, that's just trying to pressure you into getting something, and I can get that. I feel the same way. But that's not my situation. My job is just to field underwrite and show you what you can and can't qualify for. And I think you probably want somebody that's going to be upfront, honest, and transparent with you, and it's going to tell you the truth. And the truth is, I need to go through these questions to best serve you, which is what you're looking for. Is that fair to say? Well, yeah. Well, dude, all I did was I knew that in order to get him to trust me, I needed to take the stand. He was just saying, like, are you the person that's going to stand up for me, right? Are you going to make a stand? And so when I can take back control, because guess what? If the client has you at their house, dude, they want you to be in control. When I go to a doctor's office, I don't want him to pass the control to me. I want him to take control. I want him to be confident. I want him to connect with me too. You know, when you go in and you got a confident doctor that's not connected, it's still not the same. But if he connects and he's a human and can relate to you and all that, and he's got confidence, that's a perfect storm, right? So think about it the same way for you as you go in. So guys, I hope this makes sense. I hope it helps. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this. Comment also, because every single week we have 4 winners that win free lead money. And the thing I love the most is when somebody says, hey man, I won this lead money. I went out and I served 3 families last week and got the ball going. And that's what it's all about. That's our goal and desire, is to serve you in every facet that we can from this podcast. And guys, the one thing I know is this: most people inherently want to make a difference. They want to provide value. They want to make an impact in others' lives. Just a simple share might do that for somebody today that's sitting there thinking like, man, how do I best connect with the client? How do I hold myself more with confidence? How do I handle a situation where a client's got this big term and I'm trying to show them something that's significantly more for less protection, but it's got the money back option? How do I get them to see that? And is it more valuable, and how do I show the value? And I hope this will do it for them. So guys, make it a massive week. Be strong. Stay steadfast. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Is this thing on? What's going on, guys? That's from last week's giveaway. What's going on? So, a little bit of a dilemma we got going on here. We are still going to do the lead credit giveaway if you commented on last week's video. But, at the time that I'm filming this, I do not have the comments yet. And I am going to be gone at the time where I would typically film the lead credit giveaway. So what we are going to do for people who are watching on Facebook and are watching on YouTube, we're going to do a lead credit giveaway tomorrow. I'm going to be going live on YouTube tomorrow. What is tomorrow? I have to think ahead. Tomorrow, May 31st at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that'll be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be doing the giveaway, and we're going to pick 4 lucky people, and we're going to be doing it live. So, tune in tomorrow, set those notifications. Sorry for the inconvenience, guys, but we'll see you tomorrow, and hopefully you win. And also, it gives you another chance. If you're watching this right now and thinking, usually I forget to leave a comment until Monday. Now's your chance to go to last week's video and leave a comment so that you might get picked tomorrow. Take care, guys. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Take care.